Okay. My name is Brian Weaver. I'm a VP of Sales here at NSA. And today's session is going to be by Becky, and it's going to be on rebate workflow and reconciliation. We are recording the session, so everybody that is on today will get a copy of the recorded session. And I would ask that if you do have questions during the session, that you please enter it into the chat, and we will make sure we save time at the end to go ahead and address those questions. With that, Becky, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. So as Brian said, today our webinar is going to be about rebate workflow and reconciliation. We're going to cover the workflow for each type of rebate: vendor-owned sale, vendor-owned purchase, and customer rebates. And we're also going to walk through some examples of the reconciliation in CSD. And finally, we're going to discuss the different stages a rebate goes through. As Brian said, my name is Becky Thibodeau, and I'm a senior business consultant for NSA. In this presentation is going to be recorded, and plus many more that we have on our website under the resources tab. So let's get started. So understanding when the PDER, the reconciliation record, is created helps us to understand the workflow of the reconciliation process. Vendor-owned sales is based on an AO setting where you could choose to calculate at order entry and freeze your rebate. You can calculate at order entry and recalculate it at invoice processing, or you can wait to invoice processing to calculate the rebate. Whichever method you choose, the next step will be the same. The next step will be to run the SM rebate report, which creates your claim number. You send this claim to the vendor either manually through a bot or through EDI. Once the vendor has approved the rebate, you're going to receive the credit back from the vendor, and the final step will be to reconcile the credit invoice to the open claim. For vendor-owned purchase, the rebate is set up. The item will be put on a purchase order. It's then received into the inventory. And then the rebate is calculated at the time that you cost the invoice in the vendor invoice center. After that, the process is similar to the vendor-owned sale rebates. You're going to create the claim. So your SM rebate report, you send the claim to the vendor, you receive the rebate back from the vendor after it's been approved, and then you go through the reconciliation process. Now, the reconciliation process can also be done through EDI or a bot, but today we're going to be doing it manually for you.
Hey, folks, if I could ask that you please mute. Thank you.
Okay, let's start the demo of how to actually reconcile. I'm going to switch over to our CSD environment. Give me just a second. Okay, I'm currently in CSD. I've done my rebates where they've all been entered, invoiced, or costed. So we're going to pick up the process when you create the SM rebate report. To do that, we're going to go over to the menu. You're going to go down to Sales Manager, and you're going to select Reports. Now you can either page through and look at each one, or you can go up to the top and do a search, type in rebate, hit enter. It brings up your SMROR report, and we're going to drill down into that report. So this report has a lot of options, and we're not going to be able to cover each one of them. So if you need more details on the option, what you could do is click on Smart Help over on the side, then click on SM Rebate Ranges and Options, and as you can see, it will tell you each option and what it does. So let's close this back here. So we're going to start the report with a new report. We're going to do a one-time, but of course, you could do a stored report. It should correspond with your reporting requirements with your vendor, whether that's weekly, monthly. If you do it as a stored report, we're going to do it as a one-time. We're going to do it to view so you can actually see the report. And first, we're going to run the report for a vendor on sale. Um, Most of the time, you're going to run this report by vendor because that's how the rebates are paid. So I'm going to put in my vendor number. Mine happens to be vendor number 1. Now, where are we doing vendor on sales? I can put an invoice date range in for like the month. And once again, you want the range to be based on what your vendor's reporting requirements are of when they pay their rebates. As we talked about, there's many options that you can choose. The most common ones, well, the ones that we're going to concentrate on today is the first few. The first one is we are going to do vendor rebates on these examples, not the customer rebate. So we're going to choose V for vendor. Where we're doing vendor on sale, we're going to change this to S. And all the rebates have to be in invoice status before they get picked up on the rebate report to create the claim. So this defaults as I, so just leave it as I for this purpose. And then we have to make sure and say update the invoice rebates because that is what's going to create our claim for us. All the other ones, once you learn, go through the help, you can decide based on your company requirements how you want to answer the other ones. So let's run this report. We're going to take a quick look at it so you can see what it looks like. As you can see, your claim number is going to be up in the top. It's going to show your vendor. The outstanding rebate amount is for your vendor, what is outstanding at this time. It lists all your customers, your products according to how you set your rebates up. You have your invoice date, and it shows your rebate amount. So the next one we're going to run is for the vendor on purchase. So we're going to jump back over, do it as a new one time again. I'm going to run it to view. This time, I'm going to leave the invoice date blank. And what that will do is pick up all the vendor on purchase rebates that has been done since the last time this report has been ran. We're going to leave option 1 as vendor because we're still working on vendor rebates. We're going to change option number 2 to purchasing. The status stays I, and yes, we want to create our claim. And we're going to go take a look at the report. As you can see, the report is going to be very similar to the one for the vendor-owned sale, but it's from the purchase order point of view. It's going to have your items, your products, your POs that you purchased those products on, the quantity you purchased, and it's going to have the rebate amount. So now to reconcile these rebates, what we need to do is jump over to our reconciliation. We're going to go to price and discounting. We're going to go down to entry, and we're going to select the option for rebate reconciliation. Now, there's several options on this screen where you can search. If you know your claim number, of course, you can put your claim in. You can look for just the rebates for vendor-owned purchase or vendor-owned sale, or you can put your vendor number in, which is what we're going to do. And we're just going to hit search to bring them all up. At the bottom, you're going to see our two newest ones here. If you notice, it will tell you what the rebate was for. Was it sales or was it for purchasing? It will also tell you the expected rebate amount that's you're expecting from the vendor. But to reconcile, we're going to have to drill down into these. So we're going to, as I said before, it could be done with EDI or a BOD, but we're going to do it manually today. So the first screen it takes you to is the vendor receipt screen. Now, this is where you're going to enter your information for your vendor invoice that you receive from the vendor. And why? Oh, I got to unpin this. Your new button's over here. We're going to change the status to update to get it ready for our final update. We're going to enter our amount of our credit invoice of what the vendor sent us, and we're going to enter that credit invoice number in. And I'm just making up one here, and we're going to save that. And what that does, it puts it down here. It's already in the update mode, ready to go. But now we're going to tell what items that we get the rebate for and for how much. So we're going to click on the line reconciliation tab. Now, if your claim quantity and claim amount matches what you actually got from the vendor, you could just simply select all of the lines and change the status to update. And that will just, the next step will be the final update. But however, if it comes in and it's different than what you expected, what you could do is set these lines to disputed. And that will give you time to go back to either your purchasing department or your vendor to find out why the amount was different than what you expected. So once everything's been done or decided, or maybe the difference is just rounding. Like, for example, I entered this invoice for $50, but the claim amount was actually for $49.95. So if I wanted to go in here and say, okay, I'm just going to write off that 5 cents, I'm not going to take it anyplace. What you need to do is change your actual amount to what it was. And I would assume on this one, because it's $50, that the vendor rounded it up to $10. So I could go through, change each line to $10 and update it that way. Or if I know it's rounding and it's only a few pennies, I can just change the first item and put the 5 cents on there. Once I do that, I'm going to have to now change the lines back to updated. I'm going to set the status to update. The status is only updated at this point, but they have not been final updated, and there has not been any general ledger posting or anything at this time. So we hit the submit button and it's going to take us to the final update screen. As you can see, this is what the vendor gave me for a credit over here, which was $50. I now have a write-off amount of 5 cents that I need to take care of. The amount that we claim put in to the vendor was for $49.95. So we're going to final update this and we're going to write off this 5 cents. Once you say, okay, this is when it's going to open a journal. I'm going to let it default to today's period. Now it takes us to the screen. What are we going to do with that 5 cents? We're going to have to select a general ledger number to apply it to. So most of the time, you will apply it to your rebate cost of goods adjustment account. And I'm going to go down and select mine. I'm not going to touch the amount at all. And we're just going to submit it. And then once we hit submit again, what happens? The claim, as you notice, disappears. The journal now gets updated. And the claim is what we call closed now. So the next one, the vendor on purchase one, is going to be done similar to or pretty much the same as the vendor on sale. This time we're going to reconcile it for the right amount. We're going to go in, we got our credit invoice, so we're going to change it to updated. We're going to put what the credit invoice amount was. We're going to give it the invoice number that the vendor gave us. And we're going to save this record. Now, since we know that they match identical, we can go in here and just select all the lines, set the status to update. And if you notice up here, our original amount and our vendor receipts match, and there's no amount that we have to worry about writing off. Now, at this point, if you're doing a lot of vendor reconciliations, rebate reconciliations, you can just update it, sign it, update it, and back out to the original screen. And then when you're ready to update, you can select several of them at the same time, and you can hit the submit button. And it will update all these that there's no write-off to. And we just say, okay. And now the journal has been closed. And if we go back to our screen, actually, it's going to update each one of them. Whoops, that one I didn't reconcile, so we don't want to update it. And if you go back to your screen, now you see that your reconciliations are gone. They have been closed, the journal's closed, and the postings has been done. So we're going to jump back here and talk about customer rebates. The customer rebates are between you and your customer only. You're going to set up your PD records the same as you would for the other type of rebates. You're going to need to put them on an order entry. You need to send them through the invoice processing. But when you run your SM report this time, it doesn't create a claim. What it does is create a rebate type transaction on the customer's record. And I can highlighted one here that's on this customer where this is an inactive record. It does not do any general ledger postings at all. It updates your rebate due and your rebates year to date. Now, to give the rebate to the customer, it's a little bit different. What you're going to do is you're going to either go in and enter a credit memo based on how many rebate records you have here that you haven't paid out. You can either enter the credit memo to apply it against the original invoice if that invoice hasn't been paid, or you can create a miscellaneous credit for all of the rebates to apply against future invoices. And then the miscellaneous credit will show up on their account, and they would take it the same as they would any miscellaneous credit. So I'd like to stop here. And Brian, are there any questions that we have?
Yeah, I don't see any at present in the chat, and I would just ask as a reminder for everybody, if you do have questions, please enter them in the chat and we'll make sure we address them. So we're good for right now, Becky.
Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the stages, because people are usually confused once they run their SMROR. They think that it can never be ran again. You can actually run it for any stage except the inner stage. And as we go through here, the inner stage is going to be when you actually put it on a sales order or when you put it on a purchase order. You haven't done anything with it yet. You just put it on those types of orders. The invoice stage is when the vendor on sale invoice has gone through the invoicing process, or when you have costed your invoice in the AP vendor costing. The printed stage is simply you've run the SMROR and you've created your claim number. So it's now in the printed stage. The updated, as I showed you in the rebate reconciliation, you can update a rebate without doing a final update on it. And if you wanted to run a report on just those items to look at them, you could. You can also run on any disputed rebate items that you might have. And reconciled is once it's been reconciled, it's cleared from the reconciliation entry, but you can still go out there and enter a claim number and look up what was reconciled on that claim. And if you bear with me just a minute, I want to jump back over and show you what needs to be changed for you to see these different ones. If you go back and run your sales manager rebate report again, and I have to find it again. Here we go. Go back to the same report. To run based on other stages, you would just go in, do your new one time or new stored is totally up to you. You can actually, where you have a claim number, you can run it by that claim now, or you can still run it by the vendor, or you can run it by an invoice date. And then when you go to the next screen, this is the one that you're going to be concentrating on. You can run it for multiple ones. If you want to look at everything that's in the invoice printed and disputed stage, you can type in multiple ones by just putting a comma and then printed comma, and it will take multiple ones. Or you could just run it by one. You will say no because you're not updating any claim now. You're just looking at ones that are in certain stages. So the last report I want to talk to you about is your price discounting trial balance. Your PD trial balance looks at rebates that are only in the status of I, P, D, or U, which is invoice, printed, disputed, or updated. And what that does is when you do the final update, it relieves your rebates due account. So it compares that rebates due general ledger account to whatever is left on the vendor on sale and vendor on purchase. If you go into AO options under your financials and your period structure and have it turned on track balance and history, you can run this as a balancing report every night and it will keep track of it. It's one of the ones we recommend for balancing, along with all the other trial balances, and it will give you all your rebate totals. You can use the SMROR by running it in different stages to find out where you out of balance, and you compare the two together. So, are there any questions up to this point?
I don't see any in the chat at this point, Becky.
Okay. So, what's your next steps? So, let's if you've been using rebates, but you haven't been reconciling, and that's fairly common, you can call NSA for assistance in cleaning up all your old data and getting it off the report. And then we could start working on balancing your PD rebates trial balance. So just give us a call, enter an issue at support@nsacom.com, and someone will reach out to you and help you. And that is it for me today. Does anyone have comments, questions, anything else?
Yeah, guys, we'll give it a minute here for anybody that might have any questions they'd like to ask. I'd also like to thank everybody for pivoting with us today over to Teams. We apologize for the problem there with GoToMeeting. And Becky, thank you as well for hanging in there and being able to do the session for us. Now, it looks like we don't have any additional questions, so we will give you back 15 minutes of your hour, folks. Thank you all for attending, and you all will be receiving a copy of the recorded session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye now.